Wow, that's a lots of people. Uh-huh. Hi, all you people. Are you all hearing me? Give me a little thumbs up if you're hearing me. Yay! Look at that. You're gonna have to go to another room. Yeah. I just had to toss Hickey from the office because she's feeding back. There she is, laughing about it. Um, yeah. In a minute, I'm going to start the presentation. Hickey, we need to have you close the door there or something, okay? Wow. I see a lot of faces that I know and a lot that I don't know. And welcome everybody. I think yeah, it's time to start. So I think I should just go ahead and begin. And you're used to on these calls to us doing, passing the talking piece and doing a round of, just introduction and checking in and all of that. And we're going to skip that on this, just because there's a lot of things to go over. And plus, me, get me started. I can talk for an hour easy. Um, Hickey, what about recording this? Is this going to automatically record? Okay, good. Thank you. And yeah, so wow, just so many people here who I see you. Many of you, I know you. I love you. I'm just happy to be here at the beginning of this decade, and I've prepared some slides. So let me figure out how to show my screen, and as soon as I do that, we'll just go through the slides. How's that? Um, and let me get to the slides. Now, one thing that I'd like to say here is that if you have questions or comments, there should be a comment bar available, and Hickey's kind of is going to be watching that. When I say Hickey, I'm talking about Michelle Hickey. I say Hickey because we have multiple Michelles around here. So so Hickey will be watching that, and I'll just start going through these slides, and from time to time I'll invite other people on our leadership team to speak because they have um, more direct involvement with some of these things. It's just been an amazing ride, you guys. I'm just so grateful to everybody here for being a part of this this big work that we're doing. We are really doing an amazing big work in the world by taking on this forest therapy, and it's critical work. It's critically important work, not just taking on the forest therapy, but also bringing into the world really the presence of the guide as the one who helps the other people find what their unique place is and to fully embody themselves in a world where it's really easy to have our voices tamed out of us. And right now, our voices are needed more than ever. And so a lot of this is, for me, a lot of it's about finding our voice through the voice of the forest and all of the other many beings in the forest. So, but let me just do a little review of the year, and then maybe we'll have time for some question and answer. And here we are at the dawn of a new decade. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is that a decade ago, this was not a thing, right? Forest therapy existed in Japan, but it was not known outside of Japan. I don't know if anything had been published by that time in English language. Anyway, it started showing up early last decade in articles about Shinrin-yoku. And and then forest bathing, but now it's a thing, right? And some of what we're seeing is there's a bunch of books out, there's international conferences happening multiple times a year, many training organizations have popped up. So one of the marks of success is ANFT. We were the first training organization outside of Japan, and we really developed this standard sequence model with the emphasis on guiding rather than therapizing. And now that's really just all over. It's emulated all over the world by other organizations. There's several international societies that are competing for the credibility of being like the society to go to. There's government involvement at different levels, probably more in the EU, certainly more in Japan and Korea than there is here in the United States. So some of you may have involvement with government agencies, but what we're seeing is a lot of that. In the United States, we've had really good support, mostly through Tamberly Conway, our colleague, with the Forest Service, and that's been really amazing. We've also been seeing, I don't even have it on this list, but it's showing up in healthcare settings. And so just really great. And as that's happening, the Forest Therapy Guide is emerging as a recognized profession. I was really aware when I started this that one of the heavy lifts in doing this was that we were offering this thing called Forest Therapy Guide that there was no cultural context for. Like no one would know what it was or how to value it for at least 7 or 8 years. And now it's happening. People are beginning to know. And I think in about another 3 years, more people will know. And just so you guys know, we're making constant efforts on that. We're going to, we've been meeting with international nonprofits and presenting at conferences, and the last few conferences I presented at, just almost every presenter in every conference mentioned forest therapy, even if they knew nothing about it. They knew it was a thing. So I think we're doing a fabulous job, all of us working together. I'm not talking about ANFT staff, I'm talking about all of you. And I see all of these articles coming out, all the posts you're doing, all the work you're doing. Every time you're doing that, you're adding another little piece of information to this flood of information, so people will recognize forest therapy as a thing. And I tell you, one win for me on that this year was two of them. One was I showed up for a walk, and I'd never seen a prescription. No one had given me a prescription form ever in all the years I've been guiding. I showed up for a walk, 4 people came, 3 of them had prescription forms. All of a sudden I'm like, well, okay, so something's happening, right? And then more recently, Pamela and Karen Sapper and I have had the opportunity to co-guide groups of physicians. We're having groups of physicians coming out to do these walks because they're really curious about it. So definitely a thing there. And another thing is just this global community of guides that we have is really phenomenal. I get a big sense of that when I travel around. Usually when I'm traveling around, there will be some kind of advance organization of gatherings of guides, and I see the guides coming together who've never met, and it's instant community. And then the research interest, there's a lot of research interest now beyond the boundaries of Japan and Korea, and very importantly to me, beyond the boundaries of how the Japanese originally defined what are the research interests in forest therapy, because they defined it as it's about stress reduction, and immune response, which is really great. And yet when we ask you guys, what is it about this that's really compelling to you, none of you are saying, well, my blood pressure was reduced. Not a single one of you is saying that. What you're saying has much more to do with meaning and with what we could call even term spirituality, and with authenticity and with personal growth. And so we're starting to see some research proposals pop up looking at those things, which I think are the things that really matter. So what did we accomplish in 2019? By the way, I want to just pause right here to invite you to look at this fabulous photo that I just took 2 days ago at my house. And all of these photos, for me, one of the great pleasures of doing this annual talk is I get to show you photos. Everyone wanted me to show you photos of you guys at different events. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to leave a bunch of you out. So I'm going to just, if I do that, so I'm going to just show nature photos. So what did we accomplish in 2019? First of all, training. I wonder, Ben, if you are on and if there's some way you can unmute yourself to talk about the training. Are you on, Ben?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
New year, such new opportunity and loving challenge. And in 2019, we did 17 trainings. We did our first training in Spanish with all Spanish language materials in partnership with Corazon Latino and the U.S. Forest Service. That was in Puerto Rico. In 2020, we're going to be doing 20 trainings. Figure that can be thematic. 2020, it's easy to remember. We're going to be doing our first training in Asia at the University of Taiwan. And we're going to be doing something also I'm really excited about. We're partnering with the Chico Ecological Reserve to do a training for survivors of the Camp Fire. Some of you may know that was a very devastating fire in Northern California. So this year I'm really excited to see how the practice of forest therapy can begin to really take an important role in combating the emotional devastation that happens when we experience the physical impact of climate change. I think the world is constantly waking up more and more to how critical this work is. And with what's going on in Australia right now, I'm really hopeful that we can find a way to replicate this program to be training mental health professionals and local counselors to be not only helping to tend to the trauma of human beings, but to work towards helping people reestablish a relationship with the land after the land and they have gone through a trauma together. So I just want to say thank you all for doing this incredible work. I think the training is coming a long way in terms of defining clarity around some subjects that we've been learning about as trainers for years now. It's amazing that I'm rewriting the manual again right now for 2020. I'm almost done. And it's funny to me because looking back at the last manual, I remember finishing it and saying, oh my God, this is amazing. This is such a great manual. And this year, I just feel like it's taken massive leaps and bounds in understanding concepts like way of the guide and language of invitation and the liminal journey. I know I said this last year, but I promise that the new 2020 manual will be available to certified guide members, probably through some sort of web process. We're still kind of working out the kinks of how to not just leak it to the whole world, but allow restricted access to guides so that we don't have the manual just floating around everywhere. But I think we're seeing such massive steps in understanding how the training and the practicum can really support new guides in developing the skills necessary to deal with some of the crises that we're managing right now.
Yeah, great, Ben. And I also just want to really acknowledge you, Ben, with everybody here and the phenomenal work you've been doing as a training director and really keeping this thing going. You know, we've also had this growth of the training and mentoring teams, and I'm wondering if you would like to just say something about that. Like, how many trainers and mentors are there, and where are they from, and what are we doing to support them?
Well, we welcomed 3 new trainers in 2019. That's Tam, Manuela, and Christy. That brings our total number of trainers up to 11. We're anticipating adding maybe 3 or more new trainers in 2020. You'd have to ask Nadine about how many new mentors we have.
Nadine, are you on?
I am on now. We were just able to add another 500 participants to this meeting, so hopefully we'll be
Wow.
having plenty more space for people coming on.
Okay.
And yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
up to 32 mentors now from all across the globe, so it's been really exciting bringing a lot of new mentors on this year.
Great. Well, thank you, Nadine. Again, Nadine is doing a fabulous job with the mentoring, but also, you know, Nadine and Ben and Pamela basically run the organization now, with Sarah giving really good support, and this fabulous staff we have with, you know, Michelle Hickey and Caitlin and Christy coordinating the immersions, and and I know I'm Angela responding to so many things. So it's just been, I don't know, really, yeah. This photo, by the way, is from where we did an immersion in Germany. This is right on the boundary of Austria, looking at the mountains in Austria from inside Germany. We had last year we had our first annual gathering of trainers, and I think we had, what do we have, Crow, like 34 people or something, or 24 people come to that. So a
No,
lot of
that one
people.
was smaller. This year we've got 26 people. So
Okay.
last year we probably had about 15.
Oh, 15. Okay. So, and this, just so you all know, this is a really important part of our ongoing commitment to quality, is to bring the trainers together from wherever they are in the world. And we're requiring this now of trainers, that they come at least every other year. We know that for people who are traveling a long way, it's a big thing, so that we're all calibrated and we're all staying on the same page, teaching the same content, being updated on what we're all learning together, and so on. And this is a part of our quality control effort. You know, our aim is to continue to be the best training experience in the world, and investing in trainers is so important to do this. And you know, it's rigorous to become a trainer. It's become more rigorous, and part of that is because the more of these trainings we do, the more experience we get with what's needed to give a quality training, what can go wrong, how skillful staff need to be, and experienced they need to be, and able to respond really well. You know, we're seeing other organizations now propping up who are just like, you complete their training and they make you a trainer, boom, there you go. And you know, and I have concerns about how that might affect the quality of the field. I don't know, it might be great, but I wouldn't do that myself, because it's having these high quality trainers really, really important. We've also have now European and Canadian councils who are very, I'm so appreciative to all the people on those councils, how hard they're working to help, to really help ANFT be relevant, to fit into the cultures, to provide the local leadership for that. And I anticipate we'll probably be seeing more councils come up, if not this year, then the year afterwards. At least the way I'd like to see it is having regional councils in different parts of the world as we get training teams. I think that's one of the things we need, is we need like leadership in those areas to have councils. But who's in charge of councils in the organization? Ben, is that you or Nadine? Who's
Nadine and I jointly work with
okay?
the councils. Yeah.
Yeah. And that bobcat photo was taken approximately on the left edge of the photo you're looking at now. And I was standing behind the tree there, leaning my camera out to get those bobcats. So it was very fun. We had this big international conference in California through Forest Bathing International, and it was fabulous. And I'm sure a bunch of you were there, and we made a bunch of new friends, and from all over the world. Pamela ran that, and now Forest Bathing International is a nonprofit organization, and it's starting its pathway to becoming its own thing, independent of ANFT, but with a partnership intent on that. And I wonder, Pamela, if you're on, if you would like to say a little bit about Forest Bathing International or about the conference. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, sure. Yeah, the conference was really wonderful. We had about 200 people, which is a great success for our very first conference. And we had presenters from all over the world, you know, Singapore, Spain, the Netherlands, Hong Kong, Japan, and of course, many states of the United States. There was an incredible team of volunteers who really made it happen, who were really dedicated and committed and on the ground, really making this work. It was wonderful. Many people said afterwards that the greatest joy they received from the conference was the sense of community, to really meeting like-minded people from all over the world, where, you know, sometimes we can operate by ourselves as a guide, and it's wonderful to invite people to our walks. But here guides came together with people from all over the world who had heard about forest bathing, but weren't necessarily guides. And it was just celebratory, a lot of it, and very interesting. There were presentations on research as well as experiential nature experiences, nature sessions. Yeah, and Forest Bathing International, the organization, should be ready to go. We're waiting to complete our nonprofit status. Hopefully later this month, we will be able to receive donations and funding. One of the projects that I'm excited about is a youth scholarship fund, which will enable a young kid, several, you know, as many as we get funding for, to participate in, to become a guide and to find their voice in the forest, like Amos was mentioning. So that's one of the aspects. And then we're really, I'll read you the mission statement. I think that'll explain it a little bit, make it more clear. So our mission is to expand the range of accessibility and cultural participation in forest therapy, including the cultures of wild beings, waters, and places of forests. So how we do that is by developing partnerships and just identifying the groups, the communities, the organizations who want to bring forest therapy to the communities that they serve. And our intention is to create programs that provide professional opportunities for forest therapy guides. So we're bringing everyone together in order to really spread this work, this beautiful contribution, very widely in the world. If you look on the website, there's a number of ways to participate. One of them, Amos envisioned that some time ago. I don't know if you remember this, Amos, but I thought it's very timely at the beginning of this decade, is to engage in a visionary writing contest and to send in an essay about your vision for humanity's relationship with nature in the 2020s. And there's more information about that on the website. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now. Check back often on the website.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Pamela. And by the website, you mean forestbathinginternational.org, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, one thing I'd like to say about that just popped into my mind when you were talking about this is we get so many, like the final projects that people send in or that they post on the website. There is so much incredible stuff there. It's dizzying. I have no idea how to even begin to integrate the amount of information. We need a full-time librarian / information integrator synthesizer, and maybe some of that can go toward the toward this visionary writing thing. We went to a lot of conferences besides the PHOBI conference this year. I don't know that this is the right, a complete list, but Ben went to Finland for the International Forest Therapy Days. Pamela just spoke to this Forest Bathing International. We had some of our European guides, and I believe at least one of our trainers went to this Forest for Public Health in Greece. I spoke at the 3rd International Congress on Forests and Potential for Human Health in Spain. We're hoping to be the hosts of that, or PHOBI to be the Forest Bathing International, to be the host of that in 2021. I recently spoke at the Shift conference and here in the United States, the Partners in Community Forestry. Pamela and Michelle had a booth at Bioneers. And then I keynoted at this Madison Square Horticultural Symposium where we had something like a dozen guides in New York City available who guided people right there in this little Madison Square Park, right in the middle of Manhattan. As soon as I was done speaking, it was really a phenomenal experience, both of the community showing up to really guide, of what guiding could be like right in the most urban of environments and how beautiful that was. And I've probably left a few things out of this list, but I anticipate will be at more conferences in 2020 and beyond. It's officially a part of my job now that I'm not really very involved in management of the organization. Part of my job is to speak at conferences when I can.
Hey, Amos.
Yes.
We have a question from the audience that I think is a good question.
Great.
People are wondering if you can talk a little bit about what's the relationship between ANFT and Forest Bathing International.
Yes, Forest Bathing International, that's FOBI, right? That's the nonprofit. Okay, so ANFT is the company, the for-profit company that I founded, 7 or 8 years ago, to promote, well, basically to train guides. And so that's the one where we have all these, Ben and Nadine and Sarah, we're all employees here now. And we have all the trainers and mentors. Forest Bathing International, I had from the very beginning in my mind that someday ANFT would become a nonprofit of some kind, but then it turned out that we couldn't do that. There were some laws that prevented us from. And so we started Forest Bathing International to really be the nonprofit arm. That was the original idea. Forest Bathing International would be a nonprofit arm of ANFT, but the more we looked into it, the more we thought it's got to become truly independent. And one of my hopes for it was that it might evolve into a truly independent accreditation organization. But I think there's another organization that's better positioned to do that now, and I'll speak to that in a minute. And so FOBI's job is, their mission is what Pamela just said, to really increase access. And so it's a separate nonprofit. Pamela is an employee of FOBI, and eventually FOBI will grow up and go its own way. So hopefully that answers that question. So we had a strategic planning meeting in April, a 3-day session with our executive team, and just a couple of upshots of that. We updated our mission statement from the original one that I just made up long ago. My goal was to embed forest therapy in healthcare systems. And now that we've got some more experience, that's happening. We feel like this is something that's kind of naturally happening, especially we've trained a bunch of physicians now, and I think we're going to train a bunch more this year, and it's just happening. So great. So now we're saying we want to promote the practice of forest therapy in general globally and create professional pathways for guides. So one of our big missions is, that once you're trained as a guide, there are some pathways available for you. It's one of the things we get challenged on every now and then. People will say, well, gosh, why would I do this training if I can't just go and get a job? And, I try to be really transparent and tell people, if your goal in taking this training is to walk away with a certification, get a full-time job, it's the wrong training for you. But we may get there. We may get there even sooner than I think, and so luckily when we do surveys of guides who we've trained, almost none of them are saying, I'm so happy because I walked away and got a good job. They almost all say, I'm so happy because this changed my life in a number of very positive ways, and gives me an opportunity to support others in doing the same thing. Having said that, we do have a few people who are making full-time livings as guides. And so We want to focus on providing the best in world training and continuing education for guides. My personal opinion, which may not be entirely objective, is that we are by far, we have the most rigorous, best experience and training of any of the organizations. And we do get feedback sometimes from people who've taken those other trainings from other organizations, and it doesn't sound like they had a happy experience. And we want to, personally, I want to continue to be in a leadership role towards an international accreditation process. What I mean by accreditation is, I mean, there should be a body that looks at all of these training organizations, including ANFT, and says that we are meeting some kinds of standards for producing guides who are competent, who are knowledgeable, and who are safe, and that as businesses we're operating in legal and ethical ways, and are also contributing to the field in a positive way. So so that's one of my areas of interest that I hope to stay really involved in the coming years. So that's just a really brief upshot of what came out of the 3-day strategic planning session that we had here in California. It was really quite a good session. Something that we need to do about every 3 years, just have a really good strategic planning session. Also, we did immersions. These were Christy and I really working together to explore how do we bring people together in this immersion process. And the immersions have been a stepping stone toward an advanced training that I'll talk about later. And so we had a number of immersions last year, and we're working on that coming up for this year. We had gatherings of guides in a number of places, and these gatherings of guides, I'm sure this is not a complete list because I think these happen without me even knowing it sometimes, but they're really, if you can make it to a gathering of guides, or if you have a trainer, a leader in your area to work with on bringing guides together. These are really important part of supporting each other, staying in community, and learning together. Books in the last year, I think I might be exaggerating. I think it's in 8 languages. I've kind of lost track. I know Katerina is right now, as we speak, I'm sure she's in front of her computer translating it into, I believe, Czech. I'm not sure, but it's yet another European language. Nadine's book is now available through Amazon. I love Nadine's and Suzanne's books are taking this into different areas, you know. So Nadine is with dogs, and Suzanne is really like oh, and I'm sorry, Suzanne, if you're on. I see I left an R off the end of your name. Suzanne's book is just this really fabulous book for what if you're really active? What if you're mountain biking? What if you're trail running? How do you use these principles there? And I love to see this kind of creative pioneering. Brenda's book, you guys haven't seen it yet. I have kind of a little printout of it right here, Creating Ephemeral Woodland Art for Deeper Nature Connection. And Michelle Lott has been doing the design on it, and it's really fabulous. It's just got all these great invitations on using ephemeral art. So it's really great. Yeah, I forgot to put Melanie's book on this list. Melanie Chukas Bradley has just really a fabulous book on this. Julia Plevin, Kayla Samano long ago as her Harvest Project gave us a book. It's a children's book that's very beautiful, and we've been so overwhelmed that with stuff coming in that we're just now, Michelle Lott is just now getting to where she's formatting that book, and Kayla will be able to market that really soon. I accepted an invitation to serve on the board of governors of the International Forest Therapy Society. This is headquartered in Germany. I feel like it is a truly independent board. It is not being run by private entrepreneurs who are trying to corner the market. We do have at least, you know, one organization that are private entrepreneurs who claim to have the international core curriculum for forest therapy and who claim to offer accreditation. But I think what they don't understand is that accreditation, in order to be credible, has to be offered by a group that is not that doesn't have the built-in conflict of interest of running a for-profit business, providing the training. So I mean, there can be trainers and people who are representatives of those businesses on the group, but the group itself cannot do that. So I think we're 3 or 4 years away from a credible accreditation process, and I'm wanting to give about 3 years at least to this International Forest Therapy Society to see if they pan out. I really love the people involved in this group, so it's been really good. In this last year, we've done some partnership trainings to advance cultural relevancy. I wonder who on the team, the leadership team, can speak to this, maybe a little bit about the Puerto Rico training. I was actually hoping that one of our guides who's been so
Amberly?
involved in this, Tamberly, would be on the call, but she's off on a hike somewhere today. But she's been so involved in creating partnership opportunities. Who can speak to this for us for no more than 1 minute?
Sure. I'll just share, we did our first training down in Puerto Rico. It was our second training in Spanish. We had an amazing partner in Corazon Latino that really organized the program with the U.S. Forest Service and brought ANFT in. So just big thank you to Corazon Latino and all of their staff, as well as Tamberly and the U.S. Forest Service. And many of the participants received scholarships, almost all of them, I believe, funded by this project. And many of them work for the Forest Service throughout Puerto Rico and the United States. And we're just really excited about the reach that this is going to have in sharing forest therapy into new, more kind of naturalist areas. And I believe one of the big reasons Corazon Latino wanted to do some of this project, because of the just devastating trauma that many people from Puerto Rico have experienced from Hurricane Maria, and wanting to help them connect with their land again.
Yes.
So that's
thanks. And this is also speaks to Ben's recent proposal that we find some way to partner to get to Australia and to really help there. Australia is, I mean, we saw Puerto Rico was a country taken apart by the climate crisis, and now we're watching the same thing happen. Another entire nation being devastated by the climate crisis. And if there's some way we can step up for that, that's great. We also realize that within ANFT, there's been a growing conversation about how do we become more culturally relevant and open? How do we identify where we may have barriers to full and equitable access for groups that may not look like or sound like us? And so it's a really big conversation we're in. I just saw someone post on the forest therapy group, I believe it was yesterday, that they had done their final project on exactly this issue. And so I really see it as a really important, an important ongoing in-depth learning process and growth process for the organization. So Michelle Hickey, is there anything you'd like to say about the membership program?
Hello. Sorry, I'm having some issues with Zoom right now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, basically the member gateway has a lot of resources, and should you not be able to find resources, you can always email me at member services. We have, member news. We have lots of videos, training videos, membership support videos, songs. professional member calls, everything. So there's so much going on the Gateway. Should you ever need support, just email me at michelle@natureandforesttherapy.org or member services.
Amos, can I just chime in there for 1
Yep.
minute? I just want to give this huge shout out to Michelle Hickey, who has been our Director of Member Services for the past year. And the guide gateway that she mentioned, or the member gateway, has gone through 2 revisions and relaunches. And I just feel so proud for ANFT and thankful to Michelle, who has led the charge of putting into action all these amazing resources that we have for both guides and practicum and beyond. And almost every week we're strategizing for new stuff. And I'll leave it there, but check out the Gateway if you
Yeah,
want.
but wait, there's more. There's also the trail certification program. I'm
Yeah.
not sure who speaks to that, but what
I
is?
do.
All right,
That's me.
Hickey, yeah.
So we also have our trail certification program. I don't have the data in front of me, but I think we have about 34 trained trail certification consultants who are out there working to certify forest therapy trails. And we have 5 trails in process. I hope that we can have at least a dozen by the end of 2020. And the goal with having the certified trails is that it then makes forest bathing accessible to a wider audience of people, because many of these trails will be both self-guided and guided. It's also a way for us to reach new audiences. You know, when we partner with a resort or a spa or a YMCA or any other organization, this expands our reach and really grows our programming. So if you're interested, you can get onto the member portal and sign up to be get training for a trail certification consultant, and I'll get you started.
Awesome. That sounds great. Hey, we have a new office too. And someone said that they wanted me to show photos of the office, but I'll just take this little camera here. This is just my office part. You can see out that window, there's a pond. So I get to watch birds out the window. And then this is looking into the main big room of the office. Pamela is waving in there. There's a lot of reflection because I'm looking through some glass right here. Yeah, but we have this new office and it feels like growing up. I don't know how many of you might have visited us in our old office, but I got really sick of the roof leaking in all over everything every time it rained and things like that. So it's like, wow, we're officially in a new office. And those in this photo are the 2 ravens that live up by our house, and they're very familiar with Michelle taking food out for them. So there they are hanging out. And so what's coming in 2020? And let's just pause for a moment to appreciate the absolutely fabulous shot of a Western bluebird. I love having an opportunity to show my photos. So yeah, so 2020 partnerships. So there's a bunch of stuff coming up, like, you know, I don't know what the feasibility study is. I took someone's list that they emailed to me, so I don't know who would like to speak to any of this. What's the feasibility study to look at benefits of ANFT forest therapy? It's a research project, right?
Hi. So I can't see your slides, so it's a little challenging for me, but we have a lot of partnerships going on, and currently we're in process with 2 researchers who are conducting a feasibility study. And you do a feasibility study before you do a larger study so that you can work out the kinks and see, you know, what improvements you might want to make. And this study will be happening in the Detroit, Michigan area.
Great.
And we'll be creating a new evaluation form as well for better research gathering.
Okay, and Crow, would you like to speak to this National Medical Board certification thing? Because this is really important. This is like an accreditation thing in and of itself.
I think Michelle Hickey should probably be the one to speak to
Okay,
that.
Hickey.
I'll add in that we're also doing a research project through the CHICO program that's evaluating specifically how ANFT's forest therapy can be a healing modality for people suffering from ecological trauma. So I'm really excited for that research opportunity as well.
Great. Wow.
So we are working to, let's see, make it so that forest therapy guides can be covered by insurance. And this is an exam with the National Board of Medical Examiners. So we are in process in trying to get an exam created for forest therapy, certified forest therapy guides to take, and then they get into this database that medical providers have access to and can prescribe then forest therapy to people within that database.
What's the timeline on that? Should that be like up and running this year, do you think?
I hope by the end of this year we can have that accomplished.
But it's a real thing and it's really in progress and it's really fantastic. An amazing thing. Let's see. What about this adding force therapy to corporate wellness programs? Anyone
Yeah,
else?
so I'm on that too. So we are working, and I just had a great call with another entity yesterday. So we are working to try to add forest therapy as a covered wellness I don't know, activity, I guess, with a lot of different corporations. You know how they often will cover like gym subscriptions, memberships, and things like that. And so this is, would they cover 3, 6, 10 forest therapy walks?
Wonderful. What's this next thing? Compassion Caravan. Hickey, is this all like mischief you're making, all of this stuff?
It is. It's all
okay.
my
What's this one?
So that is where a group of holistic nurses are getting together to travel to 5 different hubs in the United States to bring compassion and forest therapy to nurses who are experiencing burnout.
What's Blue Zones and Urban Forestry Grant in Hawaii?
Let Phyllis talk about that.
Phyllis, are you on? I think I saw you on here.
She is.
Can we unmute her?
Good morning, everybody. Aloha from Hawaii.
Aloha.
Yes, I'm part of a grant that was applied for by the Blue Zones Project here in Hawaii from the federal Department of Land and Natural Resources. They've got a department called the Community and Urban Forestry. And the project is basically to take forest bathing to all of the major islands here in Hawaii, and to introduce it to senior centers as well as to the general public. So I'm kind of the dog and pony show.
Fabulous. And who do you coordinate with on our team, Phyllis? Are you coordinating?
Michelle
okay.
And Ben.
Right. You know, I want to just say something. I was over in, I forget which island, but I went on one of these snorkeling things recently in Hawaii, and I had a lot of anxiety. It was deep water, and I almost got right back in the boat. And then I thought, why don't I try the standard sequence? So I did the standard sequence. I was the last one back in the boat. I had such a great time doing the standard sequence snorkeling. So anyway, let's see. Will be featured as one of 8 collaborative partners in a state park director's action guide.
Yeah. So this is something that actually Nadine was able to kind of get us with. But now in the United States, state park directors will be given this action guide to help them be able to collaborate with more entities that support their programming. And ANFT was chosen to be one of the 8 highlighted organizations. So it's a real amazing privilege.
It looks like we're looking for funding for guided walks during National Public Lands Day. And I'm kind of blown away personally, you guys, everybody. So just so you know, like I'm the founder of the organization, but I really don't run it anymore. And there's all this stuff going on that when I hear about it, sometimes I'm just sort of like, I feel like the best thing I can do is get out of the way. This is another one of Michelle Lott's pet birds here, one of these turkey vultures that all we have to do is walk outside and they come out to see if we're throwing them a chicken carcass, because they're kind of used to that. So We talked a little about training of trainers and mentors. We're going to keep doing that. We're looking to do 20 more of these best in the world trainings, which should bring on about 400 more members of the global ANFT communities. And that means we will pass my original goal when I started this was to train 1,000 guides. I thought it would take 10 years. We're going to do it in 8. So that's really fabulous for me. We're also now setting up an advanced training for certified guides through a partnership with Wild Communion and Liminal Earth. So Wild Communion is as another company. It's an LLC co-founded by Christy Thompson and me. And we also call it Liminal Earth because the Wild Communion has an interest in specifically spiritual, religious, faith communities, bringing force therapy to them. And Liminal Earth has to do with this idea that we are now in a liminal time as a planet where things are uncertain and there's a lot to explore there. The training is for kind of a general title is it's Alchemy of Forest Therapy. It's for certified forest therapy guides. So people don't get into anyone can come to any of the immersions, but they don't get to do the whole training program, which I'm going to do a quick review of unless they're already a certified forest therapy guide. It consists of coming to 4 immersions on these core topics. And many of you have come to at least 1 or 2 of these immersions already. Language of Invitation, The Way of the Guide, Houses of the Heart, and Council of Waters and Trees, doing a mostly self-designed practicum and choosing 1 of 3 kind of areas of emphasis for your practicum. And this is initial idea, so this will evolve over time, but the schedule for these practicums, or excuse me, the schedule for the immersions will be up pretty soon on the Wild Communion website. And the completion of this would be a certification that's like the next level of certification. Really what we're doing is we're going really deeply into areas of the training that we don't cover in the depth that that you'll get here in the regular training. And you know, I know that we've all of us on the leadership team and trainers, we've been learning so much, and we have this discussion every now and then, should we introduce these concepts in the training? But what we get is that the training we're doing is so good and so immersive and has so much concepts already, to not go down these really advanced paths, but to offer them to people who might be interested in them. And one of the things to just consider here is that the practicum is to be place-based, people-based, and project-based. So you'll design a practicum where you choose a place, you bring together, or the people appear, and you have a specific project. And it might be like creating a pilgrimage route in that place, or it might be something we don't know yet. We're going to co-create that. So that's coming up. I'm going to be on semi-sabbatical in Santa Barbara for much of the year, just probably looking at squirrels and or whatever I'm doing. I mean, I have a lot of healing to do. I'm going in tomorrow for heart surgery, and then later on this month I'm having knee surgery, and I just have just a lot of personal healing work that I need to do. It's been a really, really big push for me to do this project. And one of the things I feel really proud of is that I can let it go and let other people run it. And it's not mine anymore, it's yours. And it's the world's. And I'm very happy about that. So that's all the slides I have. And this would be a time, I think we have another few minutes here. If there are questions that I can respond to. I don't have, on mine, I don't have a display that shows questions and comments. Does anybody know?
I can kind of manage the questions. We have
Okay.
one question already that maybe someone on the European Council wants to speak to about partnerships in Europe.
Yeah.
Is Geeta or Amanda Bond or someone on this call that wants to give a minute on that?
Yeah,
I could
I'm
say
on the
something,
phone.
Ben or Gita.
Go ahead, Geeta.
Can you repeat the question for me, Ben?
Yeah, is there any news about partnerships in Europe?
So we are we're at the like at the end of producing a PR toolkit that's going to be issued for all the guides, and from there to establish partnerships with major European organizations. So we're starting to work on that.
Fabulous. Yeah, the European Council is just getting started, so there's an incredible amount of work to do. I'm sure it will be fabulous.
And Amanda has something to add here.
And Amanda, go ahead.
Hi guys. Just to say that one of the UK major researchers for the University of Derby on Nature Connection has contacted me and is looking perhaps to do some kind of partnership. So it's something to investigate now at the early part of this year.
Great. Hey, I just opened my chat window and I'm seeing a lot of people wishing me well. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Someone's asking why there are no guide certification training sessions happening in Canada for 2020. There are currently 3 on the calendar, one in Victoria, one in BC near Banff, and one in Nova Scotia. And we may be adding a 4th training in Canada, probably somewhere in the Ontario region. Someone says, what kind of background is required to be a guide? My answer to this is that being a guide is fundamentally about heart work. So it's not really about your professional skill set as much as your ability to sink into the wisdom of the heart and cultivate relationships. Really a big part of the training that we're constantly refining is the concept of way of the guide, meaning how do we shift out of telling people what they need or prescribing what they need, and how do we allow the forest to be the therapist? So a certain level of love and humility and patience are really key foundational pieces of the development of guiding practice. If people are interested in cultivating those aspects of themselves, I think people can be a fabulous guide no matter what professional background they come from. Wow, lots of comments. Okay.
Keep going, Crow, unless there's something really specific for me.
Yeah, well, I guess a closing comment for me, I've been comparing these 2 quotes. There's one from Descartes who said, I think and therefore I am, and one from his contemporary Blaise Pascal who said, the heart has reason that reason cannot know. And I think part of this liminal journey that we're all on, being in a time when the planet is having a certain level of challenge, and we as a species are in that challenge along with all other beings, requires us to engage something beyond reason. And I find that the more we get into this work, the more conversation there is around, is it foolish to not force people to be good? Isn't that what we need to do? And the answer that comes back to me is constantly that no, we have to trust in the heart, and that the heart has this profound wisdom and understanding that we may never be able to intellectually understand. But I think that's where ANFT is really stepping into a global leadership position, because a lot of organizations are saying, let's talk about forest therapy in terms of phytoncides and stress reduction and what it can do for human beings. And there are things about what we do that are unquantifiable and unmeasurable, and that's where the heart is really doing the work. And personally, I don't feel a deep need to have an explanation for it. I just think it's really beautiful that creating space for people to have their relationship continuously yields what they are seeking and what they need in that time and that space. And I'm deeply humbled to be a part of this, and deeply grateful to everyone on this call. And thank you, Amos. It was a wonderful call, and thank you all for doing this incredible work. Maybe I'll kick it over to Nadine or Pamela if they have any closing comments.
I just have this. Well, you've been sharing these big thoughts, Ben. I've been having this thought as you and I are working on the 2020 guide manual that we hope to make available for anyone to get. We're still working on how, but the thought is just this phrase that I saw somewhere of, where is an appropriate place for forest therapy? Any place that nature and people meet. And I'll leave it there and hand it to Pamela.
I just feel such gratitude in my heart for being part of this incredible community, and really thank each person here and also people who couldn't be on the call to make this happen and to really share this incredible practice with the world. Thank you so much to everyone.
Okay, so I guess that'll wrap it up. I'm just super touched by all the love coming through the comments, and I read somewhere recently that love is something that continues even when the physical body does not. And may we be a community of love. Thank you.